It's Mother's Day this morning, and happy Mother's Day to everyone out there that is a mother. The rest of you, well, you just don't count today. But really, that's not true. But it is Mother's Day, and we're going to kind of focus a little bit on mothers. Do you know that Mother's Day comes from an actually very somber origin? It wasn't the official first Mother's Day by the official holiday standard, but in 1850, Anne Reeves Jarvis organized a Mother's Day work club to improve sanitary conditions and to try lower the infant mortality rate by fighting disease and curbing milk contamination. That same group also worked at tending to the wounded soldiers. It didn't matter what side the soldier came from. They worked to tend to those soldiers in the Civil War. And it was also formed for the mourning women to remember their fallen soldiers and to work for peace. And that was really where things got started. And later on, it was acknowledged as a holiday, made a holiday about 103 years ago. And but that was where it all started. The meaning of the day was not to remember all mothers, not all mothers inclusive, but it was actually to individually to remember and celebrate the best mother that you've ever known, being your own mother. That was the idea behind it. In fact, Anna Jarvis died fighting all of what was going on with Mother's Day because it became too universal. And that wasn't the idea behind it. Well, today we have Mother's Day, and it's mostly a time of brunches and gifts and cards and a general outpouring of love and thanks to our mothers. But it's often looked at in the context of a universal thing rather than an individual thing a lot of times. The other thing that we have with Mother's Day is like we have with most of our holidays. It's become a commercial cash cow for the retail stores. In fact, I think it was just after January they started advertising for Mother's Day. Easter hadn't even come yet. And they were advertising, don't forget Mother's Day, it's coming, right? And so it's become a real, commercial kind of thing. And it's sad because that's not what it was meant to be. It was to reflect on who your mother was and what she had done for you and what she still does for you. And so I thought I'd talk about mothers today and who mothers are and what they've done. And just see, this is not, again, inclusive of all mothers. But generally, and from God's design of motherhood, this is the way it should be. The scripture says that we are to honor our mothers. And it is actually the first commandment of promise. And Paul tells us that in Ephesians 6, verses 1 through 3. So let's look at our mothers. First of all, our mothers conceive. They conceive us and they give us birth. You know, our world is really becoming twisted and evil in its attempts to redefine and redesign gender. And they will go to no limits for their evil desires. But the last time I checked, it was only mothers that could give a birth to a child. I don't know of a guy that can give birth to a child because that's not the way God designed it. And so our mothers conceive and they carry us around in their womb for like 9 months, enduring a lot of pain and discomfort a lot of times. It's not an easy thing. In John 16 and 21, it says, when a woman is giving birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish for the joy that a human being has been born into the world. And that, if you've been around mothers that have had babies, you'll understand that. They do. You know, in Genesis 4:1, it said, Adam knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have gotten a man with the help of the Lord. Now, I don't know about you, but when your wife became pregnant or your mother was pregnant, do we even think of that anymore today, that it comes by the help and the strength of the Lord? But it does. Our mothers are special because the Lord designed them that way. To conceive and to give birth. Through all the struggles she goes through, our mothers still cherish that. So thank you, mothers, for being our mothers and for doing that for us. But our mothers are also cooks. Now I know I'm getting into the little bit, what do they call that? I'm putting it in a box, but I know guys cook too, and we're going to show you today that guys cook. But our mothers basically are the ones that feed us while dad's out working and bringing income in for the family to support the family. And she nurses us right from the womb and provides food for us. And it's interesting watching Dee Dee and Annabelle and how Dee Dee's doing things with Annabelle and bringing her along. And sometimes you get older and you forget about that. But our mothers go through a lot of work to prepare the foods that we need to help us to be healthy and to grow. Because they're concerned that we make sure that we grow and are healthy. In Proverbs chapter 31, the virtuous woman, and in verse 15 it says, she rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. Now we all realize that the Lord provides for us, but the mother knows she needs to do her part in getting that food to us as children. And so she's kind of the one that looks after that and prepares the foods and supplies us with all of the sustenance that we need. And on the same note, the mother is the one that clothes us. If you haven't got the hint yet, I'm talking about the mothers and all the seeds that they do. But she clothes us. From infancy, she takes pain in making sure that we look good, that we're warm when we need to be warm, that we're cooler when we need to be cooler. She just kind of doesn't want you to run around with holes in your socks and things like that, or holes in the knees of your pants. And so she's out there and she's making sure that we are clothed. I mean, I am glad that my mom chose our apparel. And Diane's kind of like filled in for my mom now. She chooses it for me, because you guys would probably be freaked out if you'd see some of the matches I would make with clothing. So, I mean, I'm glad that they do that. Proverbs 31 and 21 says, she's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. I believe that's saying that she doesn't ever fret about her family going without, because she's providing for them the clothing that they need for every situation. They will never go without. She knows what they need and she provides it. And so she doesn't worry about all of that. You know, when I was a child growing up, we were poor. But there were three things that I could count on. One was I was always fed. We always had food. We maybe didn't have much money. We maybe didn't have much in a house. We maybe didn't have much of a house. But we had food. And we were clothed. We always were clothed. I didn't wear designer clothes all the time. The kids at school maybe made fun of us for some of the clothes we wore. But we always had clothes. And Mom made sure they were clean clothes because she didn't like us in dirty clothes. And the other thing was that we had a roof over our head. We were protected that way. And it didn't matter if there was no money, we seemed to have those things. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 18 and 19 is where Samuel, the son of Hannah, is ministering before the Lord. Hannah had gone up to the Lord and she was barren, and she promised the Lord that if he gave her a child, she would give the child back to him in his service. And she did exactly that. She kept her promise. But it says in verse 19, as his mother, she used to make him a little robe and take it to him each year when she went up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. Now, from my understanding, they didn't live that close to where they went up to make sacrifices, so she did it once a year. But even though he was given over into the Lord's service, she never quit providing clothing for him. She's his mother. And that's what mothers do. And so thank you, mothers, for doing that for us. Our mothers are also our best coaches. They're our life coach in a lot of ways. Our mothers have a huge part in preparing us for life, training us so that we grow up and are able to face the highs and lows of life, the victories and the defeats in life, and to make the good choices in life. Had your mom ever said to you, now son, you know that's not right. You need to do the right thing. Have you ever heard that from your mom? Sure you have. She teaches us our first steps. She teaches us our first words. She teaches us lots of words, and maybe sometimes they regret teaching us a lot of words, but they do that. She coaches us as we are growing up through life. She teaches us morals and values. A slap on the hand here and a spank on the bottom there, and an encouragement here and an admonishment there. She disciplines, she encourages, and she just coaches us along, just like the coach on the football team, to get us to be victorious in life. That's what they want. Proverbs 31 verse 26, again speaking of the virtuous woman, says, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She's our coach that prepares us for the game of life. And so thank you, mothers, for coaching us, for doing that. Our mothers also cover us. You say, what? What do you mean cover us? You know, it's a natural instinct for a mother to protect her children. I mean, some of the horror stories you read on the internet and stuff now, mothers doing what they do to their children, you sometimes wonder, but trust me, that's not natural. That is as unnatural can get. But it is natural for them to protect their children. And so mothers keep us from danger. They warn us of coming danger. They do their best to keep us from getting hurt. Now you go out and play, but be careful, right? Don't hurt yourself. And so they warn us. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 23 and verse 37, he said, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often would I have gathered your children together like a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you would not." And he's talking there, I know, about him and protecting his people. But that's what mothers are like. Mothers are like that mother hen that puts the chicks all under her wings. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but I was kind of mean in my teenage years and different things with bugs and animals and all that stuff. And I worked at a place where you had chickens. And I thought it was particularly amusing when I came down the path with the tractor and the chickens were out there with their little chicks on the path, and I'd gun that tractor and it had a horn on it. I'd blow the horn. I was having some fun with them. And you know what happened every time? the chicken would go like this with its wings, and they would scoop all its little ones off the thing and just put her wings over like this and protect the little chicks from a big tractor. Can you imagine? I mean, I'm not proud of that necessarily, but that's what they would do. And Jesus, and that's what mothers do. They cover us, they protect us with all of their ability so that we don't get harmed. They just look after us that way. Our mothers also consecrate us. A godly mother, at least, consecrates her children to the Lord. You see, she prays for her children. She does her best to raise them up in the training and admonition of the Lord, because she knows that one day they are given back to the ministry of the Lord, just like Hannah did. You see, that was not just an accident. That's how life goes. That's the way God designed it. In chapter 1 of 1 Samuel, verses 9 through 11, it says that Hannah prayed with bitterness of soul, and she wept in anguish, and she made a vow to the Lord and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on my affliction, or on the affliction of your servant, and remember me and not forget me, will give your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. You see, a godly mother knows that child is a gift from God, is a blessing from God. And that child needs to be raised up to know the God that gave him and to be in service to that God. That is how God designed life. And a godly mother knows that, and she consecrates her children to the Lord. And in doing that, she converts them to the Lord. Growing up in this world can be a temptation for young hearts. There are intriguing things out there sometimes. There are many questions to be answered. There are a lot of why nots that need to be explained. And mothers do that with their children. I remember pestering my mom and wondering why we couldn't do this or we couldn't do that. And I probably was a real thorn in my mother's side. And on my dad's side, I did with my dad as well. But I remember bugging them because I wanted to understand why we couldn't do something that didn't seem like it was a bad thing to do. Of course, I never got the answers always. But in 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 5, Paul wrote to Timothy and he says, I am reminded of your sincere faith. A faith that first dwelt in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and now I am sure dwells in you as well. You see, Timothy, and you got to understand this, learned or got his faith in Jesus through his grandmother and his mother encouraging him. And you need to you might think, well, that was easy back then. I mean, that's how they did things. That was easy. No, Eunice was married to a Greek man. And still, they instilled the faith of Jesus in Timothy. So they fought some serious odds in getting his faith to be what it was. But he learned it from them. Mothers do that. And mothers consider, when a mother hears things or they observe things from their children, they consider them. They consider their children in all situations. But think about this. In Luke chapter 2, verse 18 and 19, it says that all who heard it wondered at what the shepherds told them. This is at the birth of Jesus. But Mary treasured up all these things, pondering them in her heart. That's the mother. She considered all these things, and what I see her doing as he was growing up, she had all these things, and she was considering all these things and seeing things, and that would explain why when they ran out of wine in Cana of Galilee, she said, Tell him, talk to him. He'll take care of it. Because she knew he would. Because she had considered him. She had pondered those things. Further along that same chapter, it talks about where Jesus was back at the temple and they left the city and they came back to get him. And they didn't understand how all the teachers were so bewildered by the wisdom of Jesus. But when they confronted him, he said, I must be about my Father's business. And in verse 51, it says, his mother treasured all those things up in her heart. Now, mothers consider the situation. They consider their children. They consider things. They look at the needs, the personalities, and some of the things that the children do, and they guide them and they lead them in where they need to be and how to grow up. And so they're considerate, our mothers are, and they care for us. I don't know about you, if you've ever experienced this, but maybe you were sick one time or you were hurt and you were all scared and maybe feeling a little insecure, and along comes mom and puts her arms around you and says, don't worry, everything will be okay. And you just kind of go, oh yeah, okay, everything will be okay. Mom said everything's going to be okay. And so it should be okay. In Isaiah chapter 49 and verse 15, it says, can a woman forget her nursing child and not have compassion on the son of her womb? And when I read that, I thought, no way. But the next part of that verse says, surely they may forget. And you know what? Sometimes people do forget. Mothers do forget, especially today. And the rest of that passage, of course, is that God won't forget us. But mothers don't usually forget their children. They pray for us, they tend to us, they care for us, they look after us. Hagar, when she was kicked out of the house of Abraham, went out into the wilderness, and she ran out of water and things to eat. And she set her son a bow shot, which I don't know exactly how long that would be. For me, it might be 20 yards. For someone else, it might be 50. But a bow shot away so she wouldn't have to see her child die. And she lifted up her voice and wailed. And God heard her. And he came and he said, take your child, don't worry about it. Everything will be provided. He'll be a great nation. You see, mothers care for us. And one of the ways that they care for us is prayer, through prayer. But they care for us in so many ways. Healing our wounds that we get hurt. Wiping away our tears when we're sad. All of those things. They just there and they care for us. And they comfort us. There is nothing other than God's comfort more comforting than a mother's comfort. You know, I can remember as I was younger, I would go to my mom and I'd say, Mom, I need a hug. And she would take time away from whatever she's doing. She'd give me a hug and she'd say, what's going on? How can I help you? What do we got to fix? What do I have to fix for you? And it wasn't even that there was anything necessarily going on. It just wanted that hug, that comfort. And mothers are great at giving that comfort. Because our mothers can't stand to see us hurting. In Isaiah 66 and 13 it says, as one whom his mother comforts, and this is God speaking, so I will comfort you, and you shall be comforted in Jerusalem. So God says that he comforts just like the mother comforts. He gave that to the mother to comfort her children. And so our mothers comfort us. It's a beautiful thing. And we need to thank our mothers for doing all those things. And so this morning, we pay tribute to our mothers. Thank you, mothers, for who you are, for all that you do, and all that you continue to do. And thank you, most of all, when we're a pain, for not quitting. And you know, the saying is true. A mother's work is never done. She may be old and she's still mothering, because that's the way God created them. Paul says, or he takes one of the 10 commandments out of Exodus 20, and he says in Ephesians chapter 6, honor your father and mother, that your days may be long in the land of the Lord, in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. And Paul says that is the first commandment with promise. And it literally is. It's the first commandment that says, do this and you'll receive this. In Exodus chapter 21, verse 15 and 17, it says that anyone who strikes his father or mother or curses his father or mother shall be put to death. So, do you get the picture? God says honoring your mothers, and today it's your mothers, but father and mothers, is a serious thing in the eyes of the Lord. He's serious. He's not just fooling around. Well, what about today? Is it important today? Well, I think it is, because when Paul quotes Exodus 20 verse 12 in Ephesians, he says it's just as valid for Christians as it was for the Jews. It is valid for all of God's people to honor their father and their mother. God has never changed his mind on his design of family. The world around us is trying to change it, but God has never changed his mind or his design of family. And so that means that you and I need to honor our mothers. But honor isn't just on the second Sunday of every May. Honoring your mothers is every day of the year. We need to continually honor our mothers. And if you say, but my mother isn't worth it, let me tell you this. You may be right. But God still said, do it. So honor your mother as God wants, and it'll go well with you. If you have a need this morning that we can help you with, we invite you to come forward now and let us know that need so we can serve you as we stand and sing.
Jesus, keep me near the cross, there a precious fountain, free to all a healing stream, flows from Calvary's mountain. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross a trembling soul, love and mercy found me. There the bright and morning star sheds its beams around me. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross, O Lamb of God, bring its scenes before me. Help me walk from day to day with its shadow o'er me. In the cross, be my glory till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. May be seated.